Good evening. Good evening. I'm Larry Souter, and welcome to Stories of Amazing Grace. We're coming to you from Bixter Chapel at the Madison Church of Christ here in Madison, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us online and being a part of our live audience. And if you are in the Nashville, Tennessee area, come visit us on the first Wednesday of each month right here, Bixter Chapel, Madison Church of Christ in beautiful Madison, Tennessee, Metro Nashville. We're glad to have you. Well, our theme scripture comes from Romans 8:38 through 39. I am sure that nothing can separate us from God's love, not life or death, not angels or spirits, not the present nor the future, and not powers above or powers below. Nothing in all creation can separate us from God's love for us in Christ Jesus our Lord. Tonight's guests are Jimmy and Amanda Seitz. Jimmy and Amanda transitioned from conventional to unconventional ministry roles upon their departure from the Madison Church of Christ in 2002. Jimmy began producing and hosting the Spiritual Outdoor Adventures television series in October 2002, and 292 episodes later, the 22-year run ended with Jimmy tearing up during a filmed whitetail hunt at the ranch of dear friends Keith and Beth Moore. During the 22-year run, Amanda discontinued teaching science at the public school for middle schoolers and began training to be an oil painting artist. Jimmy and Amanda have lived the life of adventure that has taken them around the world and into some of the most amazing places and situations. They are now developing a new television series to encourage the younger generation. It's called Base Camp 101 with Jimmy Seitz. Jimmy also has a new book, Decoys of Deception, and 2 children's novels for ages 7 through 12. And you'll meet Jimmy and Amanda in just a moment, but first a look back at the adventurous life of Jimmy Seitz.
Now, for those of you who don't have a clue who I am, I'm a longtime husband to an amazing lady named Amanda. Together we have 2 biological children and 1 that's unofficially adopted, and all of them are adults now. Oh, and we have 3 dogs as well, and 2 of them are rescue dogs. Oh, and one more thing. I love to spend time in God's great outdoors, hunting and fishing, and I love to teach God's Word. That's why I wake up every morning and thank the good Lord that I get to be involved with a really cool ministry that fits me very well.
Hi, I'm Phil Robertson.
Hey, I'm Michael W. Smith.
Hi, I'm Jeff Fisher.
Hey, I'm Marty Rowe with the group Diamond Reel.
This is Gary LaVox of Rascal Flats.
Hi y'all, I'm Miranda Lambert and you're watching Spiritual Outdoor Adventures with Jimmy Seitz.
Hi, I'm Bobby Cyrus. 20 years ago, I was a young pup trying to make it as a country singer and songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee. On the other side of town, there was a young minister in his 30s that was beginning the transition from preaching full-time with one of the largest churches in Nashville to launching a new outdoor television show called Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. In his own words, it felt like he was always preaching to the choir. He wanted to get into the living rooms and the homes of men who don't go to church. It all began with the filming of a pilot episode that included Michael W. Smith, Coach Jeff Fisher of the Tennessee Titans, and Phil and Jace Robertson of Duck Dynasty fame.
All I can say is you boys keep your powder dry, and I'll check with you later.
All right. Hey, thanks.
Stay after them. Y'all might get a stray duck or 2 up there. Good hearing from you, my man. We'll see you.
See you, Phil.
All right. Jace, Seitz and the boys are sitting up there on Real Foot Lake in Tennessee had him not fired a shot. So what do you think? We're gonna take him or what?
No.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Every man for himself.
Right there. No, we ain't got time to be worried about no sights. Coming on your left, right there. Let's cut to him. Get that right there.
The whole key to this duck and goose hunting business is to keep a secret from the ducks that our ambition is to kill them.
That's right. That's the plan.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, believe it or not, of Jesus. I know that may sound kind of strange.
Yeah, but he had a plan.
Here's why. He had a plan. He came to earth in the form of a man to take a life. Not the life of a duck or a goose, but his own life, which is very unusual.
SOA airs primetime on their largest outdoor network, Wild TV. SOA has grown to over 54 different countries, including Ukraine and Russia, where a partnership of the Eastern European missions for several years enabled hundreds of thousands of Bibles in the Russian language to be distributed. The Minister of Education for Russia revealed that President Vladimir Putin often watches spiritual outdoor adventures and really enjoys it.
Please welcome Jimmy and Amanda Seitz. Come on up.
Here, which one?
Good to see you.
Thank you, Larry. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, welcome. I want to show a picture here that we had doing the guest intro.
Yeah.
Kind of a split personality.
That was a real hard suit for the tailor to make, but it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this kind of fits you, isn't it? You a split personality?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's just, well, I'm not going to say split personality, but there's also a couple different things that he does that are completely different, but for the same purpose. How about that? And a different method.
And this started in 2000, 2002?
Yeah, as far as the actual television show, yeah, it actually started when I came out of my mom's womb. They jokingly say I came out with a bow in one hand and a Bible in the other, and probably hurt mom. But anyway, it's just I've always loved the outdoors, but I've also always loved preaching and teaching, and so it's always been that way. But I had chosen this path vocationally to be a preacher and a teacher and all of that, and even teach college. But at a certain transitional point, my late 30s, early 40s, that path changed this direction. I think what it really boils down to is God put on my heart, that this path you're teaching most of the time sheep that are in the pen, and this path you're going after the one that's not in the pen. How can you get that sheep and put it in the pen? And that became my assignment by God, and still doing it.
And was Amanda supportive of this all along?
I was.
Did you come from a hunting background?
No. I didn't, but I was. So I'm supported and believe him and trust him, right? That's important. But I mean, as a hunter, I was not. Before we were married, I was very anti-hunting. Actually, because I grew up in Miami, Florida, and we have just the little key deer that are endangered, and and I wasn't. But then I went to school, and I went to school with I had a lot of wildlife and biology, and I got my education in biology and my master's in that also, and I learned a lot and how it is important. So a lot of it was just, so I became more of a accepting of it, and even have done some hunting.
All right. Do you remember preaching in this room?
Boy, do I ever. I'm just sitting here looking around. Matter of fact, there's some artifacts in this room. I remember y'all.
Yeah.
It is so fun, a quarter of a century later, to look out in the famous Bixler Chapel. It's got a great story. At the very famous Madison Church of Christ, which has a great story. You know what? We filmed 99 episodes of Amazing Grace Bible Class, and you were the director producer of it all. You and Buddy Reagan, and of course Don Bellis, he had the assignment by God to take his wife to Hawaii today. So he's not with us, but he's been cameraman since I rolled in here at 98, and I think he still volunteers for you. And of course he was very much a part, and still is, of everything that we've done. Because Don retired about the same time we started this and said, hey, I got nothing to do. I'd like to go and, I love to hunt and fish. I want to be in the outdoors. And I'll tell you, we would not be in existence without Don Bellis. Literally, we would not have been. There's no way we would have made it. So,
do you remember some bloopers in this room?
Oh, do I ever? Do you have some?
Yes, I do.
Oh, no. Do we have to do this?
Let's play some of those.
Coming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Steve Farrar opens his book Point Man with a gripping analogy. I'm okay. All right. Is there a doctor in the house?
3, 2, 1.
Today on our hello, I'll do that again. Today on our hello, I'm going too fast. I'm so excited to get into this lesson, I can't hardly wait. All right.
I've seen it. It's not that good.
Shall we pray for Larry?
Each one of you must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Now those verses are clear, yet all the while I'm afraid we have far too many fathers and mothers that are exasperating their children. And far too many children who are not obeying their parents.
I'll never forget as I stood there in front of that crowd in my own wedding ceremony. And there was my beautiful bride, and I placed her finger on her ring. I said these words. What'd I say? What'd I say? Oh, boy.
Thank you, brother, for coming. I know you're going to want to come up and give this man a hug. Now, let me tell you something. I'm going to warn you, okay? There's a good chance you're going to get picked up off your feet and you're going to get a kiss right on the cheek. He says he's the only one around here who can give a chocolate kiss, and you're going to get one, so come right on up. All right? We're dismissed. Thank you for coming tonight.
Y'all know what a haunted handkerchief is? It has a booger in it.
Oh, where did you find all that?
I debated whether to put that last one in.
That's hilarious.
I think he got in trouble for that one.
Yeah. I remember a meeting being called because I said the word booger from the pulpit here one time. I learned.
Let's show this slide from generation to generation.
Oh, my goodness.
Comment on this a little bit.
Well, you know, Amanda, you start, because that is such a special picture to me.
Well, I mean, just thinking about the question that you asked earlier, God has such a sense of humor, I think. And it's usually if you say, I will never do this, or, oh, all these hunters, they're so crazy.
Rednecks.
Right, that's really what I thought. But there I am, and I'd already killed a deer there, but it's been, what an adventure. I mean, you almost don't say, yeah, I'll never do that, because, God, if you're open and to adventure, if you're open to life, if you're open to God, that there's usually things that happen that you would not think that you would ever do. And that's one of them, but it has been tremendous.
That's a really special place called the Prospect Hunt Club in Arkansas, South Arkansas. And I have been hunting there since I was 15. And my father and I and the whole family made trips. And then in the latter years, just my dad and I, until 7 years ago when he passed, he did his last deer hunt there with me. And every time I go back, boy, I cross those paths, and it's just, it's bittersweet, but it's a very, very special, holy place for me. And I've got a little cabin there. And we have those old deer stands like that in the back. They're still there. And Larry Souter took that picture. That was the filming of season 1, episode 2 out of 292 episodes. And it was a real interesting experience because, Larry, you really hadn't hunted much. And there you are with a big old camera, and we're up in that stand, and we're trying to get a deer, and we're sitting there until, I think it was 12:30 in the day when we finally got the 6-point buck. And you got it. It was quick, though. And then we got Jonathan's first deer ever. That was the day that my son, who was 8, took his first deer. Joey, it was a doe, and it's one of the greatest trophies of my life, okay? And it was so exciting. Larry was filming from the right side, and Jonathan was, I believe, sitting here on the left. We had the little 30-30 that was mine since I was 14 there, and I had a little Bible, one of the outdoor Bibles that we were going to be giving away. And I was drawing a picture of a deer to show Jonathan where to aim.
Okay.
And Larry actually filmed that up close. I showed him, and about 5 minutes later, out came a doe, and he made a perfect shot and just went crazy. And we filmed the recovery, and people ask me, what's your favorite episode? And man, we had some amazing ones, but that one's it.
Tell me about the first time that you dressed a deer, or have you dressed a deer before? And were you kind of squeamish at that?
Oh, no.
No.
I mean, no, because biology, I was like, I'm into all that.
She was 17.
I like all the,
when we
everything about the body and all the systems.
biology
and
stuff, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, where's the stomach? And oh, the heart, look at that heart.
She made me cut the heart out of the deer that she first went hunting with me so she could play with it and dissect it. So,
you learn about things, but this way you get to really see things.
Yeah.
But that's my.
How exciting.
She's become one of the best wild game cooks that I've ever eaten from, too. She's really good at cooking wild game.
You mentioned about hunting, and my inexperience in hunting, zero. A year and a half, about a year ago, last fall, Don Bellis said, come on out to my house, my farm, and I'll show you how to shoot a gun.
Yeah.
And I did well with the handgun, which was a SIG.
Oh, yeah.
I was dead aim because I guess you used to using the cameras and
That's
looking
right.
at the viewfinder, so that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Then he brought out this big shotgun. Now, for the handgun, we had our ear things on, our things, which I had a pair. And we brought out the shotgun and said, do we need to wear these? He said, I never wear these things.
That's why he has to wear hearing aids
So
now.
I shot several rounds of that shotgun, and now I'm wearing hearing aids.
Yes, you are.
I didn't have hearing aids before. But he said, it doesn't bother me because he's
already written
half
his ears.
dead.
That's right. So the lesson is this: if you're going to go out and do shooting sports, just wear ear protection. Please, you need to. We're teaching that to teenagers right now.
He also tried to show me how to shoot a bow, which I thought that would be fairly easy.
Well, as big as you are, Larry, big as strong, you just pull that thing right back.
I didn't know that you had to bring it back and cock it. That was a long ways to get back.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. You got to build those muscles up.
Well, it's not just muscle; there's some technique.
Yes, there is. You actually draw with your back.
Yeah. Well, let's move on.
Okay.
Pakistan Christmas. Tell me about Pakistan Christmas. A lot of good being done over here.
I'd always like for you to go first. What was your perspective of Pakistan Christmas this year?
Well, I just can't get over the Santa Claus, actually. But it's really a sweet thing. The whole idea of what you're doing and the churches that are starting over there and how their dedication to what they do. And they're like 3 of them will get on a little motorcycle or moped, and including the Santa with the long hat and the white everything on his face, cream, I guess, or something. And they just might go 5 hours to the next church. And then Jimmy will preach over Zoom on the internet, and then they have that. And it's just, and they all have boxes of gifts, and it's just amazing.
Is that still going on?
Yeah, we've been working there about 7 years, but it's really grown. And the ministry that God has called us to do, we literally don't sit down and go, hey, we're going to start working in Pakistan next year. It just happens. And it's like we get up in the morning like, okay, God, what do you want to do today? And he just keeps layering these things. Or sometimes he'll stop something that we've been doing for like Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. The year that we stopped, season 22, two years ago, was our top season. And God just said, stop. And you're going to do something different. And I was thinking, okay, well, I've just crossed over 60. I'm going to take it easy.
How did you get that message to stop?
Okay.
How did you get that message to stop?
In my heart, just extremely plain as day.
Money didn't run out. That wasn't the reason.
No, we were having the best year we'd had in 22 years financially. And yeah, God just put on my heart. I was starting to lose my fervor, and I was super tired, and I was like seeking His will. And it's not a quick thing sometimes. Sometimes when you seek God's will, it's a long, long time. Am I right, Chris? Because, man, we would get on our faces and pray in my office here, and we didn't have clear answers just like that or overnight. And sometimes things work out over a very long time. I think maybe what we're talking about right now is part of those prayers from back then. kudos to Chris, because he would get up at like 5 and 6 a.m. on Sunday mornings and come and pray with me. And so just, you know, when you lay it before God and then the answer does come, you do know when it comes. Y'all feel that? But there's always that waiting period. And I'd been in that waiting period for a year or two, but we were still moving forward with it. But man, all of a sudden it was clear as a bell. Like when I saw Amanda, I knew I was supposed to marry her. And my dad said that I would that's how I'd feel. And I knew. Well, I knew it was time to stop. And I was thinking, I'm going to have a respite, maybe not really do much except work on a book and kind of take a breather. Boy, was I wrong. And it lasted 2 weeks. And then we have syndicated Spiritual Outdoor Adventures, and then all these other things that he started layering on has doubled our ministry. And so right now, this year, our everything that we're doing, our budget, everything has doubled over the last 22 years. Wow. And we didn't see it coming. And Pakistan was part of all of this, because we've doubled what we're doing, we've tripled what we're doing, quadrupled what we're doing now. And we now have 5 churches that I preach for, not just one, and we now have a school. So we have about 180 students, and this is like K through 12, and boys and girls, and it's really interesting. We tried a preacher training school, but they're so spread out, it was hard to do, but we still do that. We'll do youth festivals. Sometimes we do crusades, and we'll have 10,000 Christians show up. And ironically, there's about 12 to 15 Pakistani government officials that are Muslims, and they're there to protect the Christian gathering, because the Pakistani government allows Christianity. They sanction it as a legitimate religion there, even though it's not the state religion, but you cannot speak in any way derogatorily against the Quran or any of that. And they don't. They're very careful about that. And so it's an interesting place for me to be on a big screen preaching through a translator named Amir. He's amazing, about 37. He spent 27 days in jail last year because some false accusations against him, and the government basically protected him from the extremists by throwing him in jail and beating him, but keeping him alive. And so that's what we're dealing with. They've burned our church building. They've burned about 70 of our members' homes, and they've killed one of our members. And I actually have the video of that. I'm never going to show anybody, but I watched them beat him to death in front of his wife and kids in front of his house. So it's the most dangerous place on earth for a person to be a Christian right now. And yet they just continue, and it's 70 to 80% women. I mean, these ladies are amazing, and so are the men, you know. And the funny part is when they make these huge posters, and I tell them, please don't do those posters. Quit doing that, because if I ever come over there, I'm going to have a death threat or a death sentence. You know, quit making posters of me. And then they'll make them Amanda if it's our anniversary, and they'll have these giant posters, and they make cake. They'll make a cake twice as big as that screen, 6 inches thick, with our picture on it, and then they eat us. It's just
tasty.
It's like a COVID party. They'll cut a big piece and go around and get everybody a bite, just like this, you know. But it's just a fascinating ministry. It's growing, and so the week of
Let's go back to that picture. With Pakistan. He's in whiteface?
Yes.
Why?
Because they're very dark, and they believe that Santa Claus, I guess, is Caucasian. Okay. That's the only thing I can figure out. So he white-faced, and the first day, when I first saw him, I was preaching live to just a smaller church of about 400, and I saw him in the back, and I'm like, and it really threw me, and I kind of got off track a bit, and by day 3, he had turned green, just like the Grinch, because that white was going away. And so he was a green Santa Claus, riding in the middle on this motorcycle. The guys called me one night and said, hey, it's 11:30, we're about to leave or whatever it's called, and we're going to drive 5 hours. It's 37 degrees and sleeting, and we're on the motorcycle. Well, there's 3 on that one. And I get this video from Amir, and he's driving along. Hello, Jimmy, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And Santa Claus is back there going, and this other guy's hanging on the back like Napoleon Dynamite, like this. And they're driving 5 hours in 37 degrees sleet. They're my heroes, you know? They really are. And we're feeding these kids. We gave 480 gifts out at Christmas to the kids, and then we gave 1,000 meal boxes out to the widows and the poor families. These are the poorest kids on earth. So we try to keep food to them. We'll feed them rice every night at the churches so they at least get something. And then so they gather every night. It's Acts 2 is what it is. and then they eat. They pray and worship first, and I'll teach, and then they eat. And everybody eats by scooping rice in their mouth like that, and they get something. And like in March of this year, we've already planned to try to get shoes and clothes for all the 480 kids in the school and the 5 churches. So it's amazing. Love the ministry.
Let's talk about Base Camp 101. What is Base Camp?
Yeah.
It's coming, right?
What's your perspective of Base Camp?
It's a new adventure. That's what it is.
Is it like Survivor?
It is. It's how would you describe it?
Well, I think if you took the TV show Survivor, and then you take the TV show Alone. Does anyone watch Alone? I love that show. All right, you take that. What about Amazing Race?
Is that Naked and Alone you're talking about?
What?
No. Definitely not that.
Naked and Afraid, Larry.
Although it's really hot when we did.
That one.
Not that one. We don't do that. No. Especially with teenagers. You get in big trouble. So, no, if you took Survivor and you marry it to Alone, where 10 people are dropped off in the, say the Alaskan wilderness, they're typically in Canada, and they're solo, and it's the last one standing wins $500,000. Well, so we're training these teenagers how to do that. So we're taking the Survivor elements and Alone elements and Spiritual Outdoor Adventures elements where we're actually training them in all of the various outdoor sports, from bows to long-range shooting with rifles to sporting clays to hunting pheasants to hunting deer, kayaking, hiking, how to build a base camp, how to start a fire, all these things, how to clean animals and cook it over an open fire, how to flay a fish. We're training these kids who they're being raised on an electronic babysitter, and their idea of getting outside is in the front yard walking to the car.
Or at the park, or something like that.
Park,
so there's not, it does, it really has. Most of those kids have not hunted or been outside, and it's been really good just to teach them different ways to even cook over by a river, and it's been really fun.
How do you select?
They love
people?
that.
Did they just submit their names? Did you?
No, on the first round, we wanted to hand pick. And so some of these kids we knew, some we did not, and we did a search for, and I would make phone calls, and I would go and meet with them, meet with their parents. So it was a very selective process. So for example, Bella, that you see on the top right there, it would be y'all's top right, she's 15. Her great-great-grandfather guided Teddy Roosevelt on his elk hunts. And so her dad's an outfitter. Her grandfather's a legendary outfitter. That girl can hunt, all right? But the girl right next to her has never touched a fishing rod or a gun or hunted in her life. She loves to paint her nails, cheer, and wear a pink tutu, all right? That's how she showed up in camp. You're going to absolutely fall in love with both those girls when you see it. We've already filmed the whole first season. It's just amazing. And to use Addie, she's 12, to use her as an example, I'm getting pictures from her dad now, who is a minister in Michigan. I met him on a speaking engagement, and he's saying, "You are going to cost me a fortune." She's making us all go fishing. She's making us all go out and shoot, rifles and pistols, and I got to buy all these things now, this kind of stuff. But he's loving it. So Addie and her dad are coming down in April. We'll be out at Don's farm. We're going to be doing some turkey hunting. So I could keep going on all these kids, but every one of them has an amazing story. One of them is extremely poor and lives in LA in the projects. And it's in the Latino projects. And it's one of the roughest places in the United States to live. You're going to fall in love with him when you see what happens. It's just incredible. And, God is a part of this mix. We are not afraid to talk about God and to pray on the show. We are filming it at the level of a show for Discovery Channel. It's a very, very high budget. I was told by someone 2 weeks ago at the big convention in Las Vegas that this is the most expensive season for any outdoor show that involves hunting and fishing in the history of the television industry. And so we have funding and we have sponsors, and it's really exciting to be able to have a large crew and use Hollywood cameras and really, really do it at that level. It's very difficult because you've got 32 people on set, and it's a lot of moving parts. It's like herding mice. But ultimately, the product is amazing. And so we actually have a shot for it to be a History Channel or a Discovery Channel or a Netflix type series. And we hope that it does well. Ultimately, one teenager wins, and they win a $34,000 scholarship to Bethel University right here in Tennessee and get to fish on their bass fishing team. And they've won 5 national championships. They're really good. And then they won a bunch of other gear as well as a trip for their family. It's a very special trip. So It's neat.
Decoys of Deception.
Once again, what do you think about decoys, Amanda?
This is a book, not a TV
Yes,
show.
it is. It's a
Correct.
book. It's a book
Your
that,
book?
no, it's his book.
Okay, tell me about
He's
the
been
book.
he's been basically doing this book all his life of ministry. And I think it's kind of a culmination of a lot of the lessons, but we're in a time right now that it's very, very important of the weapons that Satan uses, and deception is one of the biggest weapons.
Is it for young people or old people?
I think it's for everybody.
Anybody.
Yeah, it's actually a book that churches and small groups will use, and there's a study guide that goes along with it. It's a trade book. It's 350 pages. It's large. It's a deep dive study. And I've really developed more and more over the last 25 years since being at Madison as a historical backgrounds theologian, and I've focused on that. I've taken multiple trips to Israel, Jordan, different places, and I've led groups and taught. And I've been getting back into the original languages and really doing deep studies. And of course, I teach, classes at my church and also on YouTube. And so I'm constantly about teaching. That's really what my whole life is about, teaching. But it was time for a book, and I had a large publisher approach me about this and signed me to do it. It's the same publisher that handles Tim Tebow's books. And Tim and I were on a speaking team for a little bit of a time, and what a great guy. If you ever get a chance to hear him, go. But they're publishing it. They're very excited about it, so I've been working really hard on it. If you remember, Larry, when we were doing Amazing Grace Bible class, I talked to you and Buddy Reagan one time and said, hey, let's try one by going out and fishing. And we went to a place and we trout fished, and you are the reason for the name Spiritual Outdoor Adventures, because while we're driving there, this was going to be kind of a special, an Amazing Grace special, to see how people would respond to us actually going in the field, and we're going to try to fly fish. First, we're going to find out what the fish are biting, and then we're going to tie a fly, and then we're going to try to catch a trout, which I finally did, and then I say, so the first half of the show is dedicated to that. Then I say, okay, well, let's go back and sit around the fire, and we're going to cook this fish, and we're going to talk about how Satan is like a fly fisherman. We called the episode Lures of Satan. Do you remember that? And you pressed me about 10 minutes from that spot and said, you've got to have a title for this series if it turns into a new series. What are you going to call it? And I said, well, I mean, it's Outdoor Adventures, but it's going to have a spiritual message. So for now, we'll call it Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. It's stuck.
Wow.
So thank you for prompting me and holding me to the fire to do that.
Is there a royalty for this?
Yeah.
We'll count that royalty for the first 21 years when it aired, because we only broke even year 22.
Wow.
But you're the cause for that. And then we did a turkey hunt.
Yeah.
3 months later, and we called it, you ready for this? What did we call it? Decoys of Deception. And it was actually an Amazing Grace special turkey hunt. And we got 5 times more response on that episode than any other Amazing Grace show we had done over those 100 that we did. And I remember we have 2 letters, because Buddy brought them to me, 2 letters from ladies that started out, what on earth are you doing spending God's money hunting and fishing? And then they said, now, at first that's what I was thinking. And then as you got into that teaching part, my husband came walking through the room, and he doesn't go to church. And he said, what's this? And I didn't really want to tell him it was Amazing Grace. And I just said, oh, it's Jimmy's hunting and fishing today. And he sat down and watched the whole thing all the way through the end. And then he said, that's a good old boy. I could go to his church. And there were tear stains as they wrote. Both letters had tear stains as they wrote, please continue to do more of this. And see, I knew at that moment that that's when God was calling me to move out of the suit side and go into the camo side vocationally. And so he was already preparing that path, and you're very much a part of that story. So thank you to Larry Sauter
Yeah, right.
and Buddy Reagan. Thank you.
I want to talk about your two novels that are coming out. Then want to get to the paintings. The two novels. Tell me about these two novels briefly.
Yeah. Well, our family has a history with a cave in it, and it's Cave City, Arkansas, and our family used to own that, and so we did that cave digs. I've always been fascinated with Native American artifacts and artifacts from all over the world, and we're building a museum. We've got quite a neat museum in our lodge that we love to share with people of all over the world, including Israel. But I just wanted to put together stories for 7 to 12-year-olds because, kids are not reading as much now. And I think if we put good literature out there instead of, that's what's going along with the woke agenda, et cetera, then they'll read it. And we have found that is true. And so these novels are for those kids. And it'll be a real cool adventure story about a family that stays together and they work through things together. And there is a definite spiritual message. The first one is the way of the cross. And then the second one that's about to come out is a retelling of the story of David and Goliath in a modern story that has to do with the same family returning to Indian Rock Cave. So it's called The Legend of Indian Rock Cave. That's book one. Return to Indian Rock Cave, book two.
Well, it started by you just telling the stories to our kids.
That's true. Yeah.
He would tell these little stories, and
while we're driving,
when they were or going before bed, and he'd make them, and they'd know them, and oh, the little wolf and howl, and you know how that goes. And so he would tell these, and they would love them, and he would always kind of and the next, and there was more adventures of this family that he told the story of. Just happened to have a boy and a girl, like our boy and girl, the same age, about their, but that was neat. We're like, you need to put that down. They're fun. Our kids loved them.
How are your kids doing now? How old are they? How old are your kids?
35, 34, and 33.
Your kids.
I know. Yeah, Chris is 35, Jonathan's 33, our adopted Mary's 34, and they all have a brand new baby this past year, so we have 3 new grandbabies, plus one that's 3 years old. So
fun.
Yeah, the quiver's getting full.
Now, Amanda is an accomplished artist.
Can you believe that?
So, this is a talent that you had years ago and didn't know about, or developed recently, or what?
Just, I was teaching science in middle school, and that was another one of those, funny things from God. Like, oh yeah, I was teaching middle school science.
She said she'd never do that.
I said I'd never do that, and I did that anyway. So then I just started painting. I just started doing this. I was teaching.
You had some instruction though?
Yes, I was teaching a retreat for girls, and we did a ceramic. You know how you can go in and you can paint ceramic, and then they'll fire it for you. So we did that, and I was like, I love this. I want to take a class. And so but I was teaching, so I could only do that really during the summer or on breaks. And then I'm like, I loved it so much. I just felt it was just like, oh, thank you, God. I love this. I mean, I love teaching, and I love science and kids, but I love painting. I do. And it just worked just right because we would go so many different places, and then I started plein air painting because I thought, oh, it's so pretty. And so I would go and I would paint.
You know what plein air painting is? That means
paint outside. So when you paint outside,
you don't take a
so I
huge
learned
canvas or
that.
anything. It's like
but
a little
I love the faces, and I love doing portraits, and so I took a lot of classes, and we have some wonderful classes and opportunities around Nashville, and so I did that, and I just kind of got my books and practiced because you love it. It's not like, oh, I have this talent, and you don't either have talent or you don't. No, there may be some talent a little bit, but the part of it is the practice. And you just have that love for it, so you practice it. So I think anybody can paint, anybody can draw.
No, I don't know about that.
But
I don't either, 'cause I
you
painted
don't love
one time
it.
and
So,
it's like,
but you could if you did, and you're like, wow, I'm good because you've practiced it. So, but you have to have that love for it. And I really do. I love to observe and learn, and it's also good for anyone if you have any kind of stress, anxiety, or anything like that.
It's relaxing.
When
Yes.
you paint, you think of nothing else. You are there solving the problem in front of you.
It's like fly fishing.
And I love to
thing.
teach. I love to introduce other people to that. And they're like, oh, because you don't think of any. You're just there. You are here and you're painting and you're solving that problem. So you don't think about other things. And in the past or in the future, you're right there. So it's really a wonderful
And some of these
thing.
paintings being recognized by some important people overseas, is that correct?
So at the one time, yes,
Yeah?
we got to go, and we were somewhere together, and they were talking, and Princess, or what's her name?
We got a call.
Anyway, it was kind of one of those crazy
Can y'all go
things.
hang out with the royal family?
Yeah.
And take them fishing and all this stuff. They're going to be in Colorado. So it's the first cousin of the king, because he was the king of Serbia and blah, blah, blah. So we go out there and we hang out with him a couple of days. Well, Amanda makes friends just like that. I mean, she makes friends everywhere she goes. And she and her Royal Highness Princess Catherine immediately hit it off. And by the time we're going home, she's commissioned her to do 3 paintings. And the next thing we know, we're getting picked up in their jet, taken to New York, and they're unveiling them in New York at this this fundraiser that she's doing to raise money for the Mount
For the
Sinai
library.
to protect the best religious old ancient manuscripts in the world. So, yeah, we're sitting there at the table going, what on earth are we doing here? How do we get in these places like this? And Amanda is Amanda. She's just enjoying the food. You can eat that, and she doesn't care if there's 3 presidents in the room and there's the ambassador and all this stuff. And I'm just kind of like, wow, how do we get in this room here in New York City, And Her Royal Highness Princess Catherine is at the podium. And I said, Amanda, she's about to bring you up. And Amanda goes, nah, I'm not supposed to speak. She's not going to bring me out. I said, she's about to come here, Amanda Sites. So Amanda just goes up to the podium. Now, this is New York, okay? Half the people there are PETA members. They're anti-hunters, all right? And the first thing she did, Princess Catherine says, well, where'd you get your inspiration for this beautiful painting of St. Catherine of Alexandria? And she said, well, our cook at elk camp was just beautiful. And I'm over there dying laughing, And we're just, once again, how did we get in these situations? And God has a sense of humor. I think he's a redneck. And he says to the angels, hey, watch this,
Is there something you haven't painted yet that you want to paint?
Well, I'm
No.
not that I can think of.
Okay.
I mean,
She's always
I
trying
like-
to
How many
paint
paintings
me.
have
I
you?
do. I have some ideas. I have some, like I painted Jesus' hands with the bread, and I have some other ideas to do with the wine and some glasses and I put the nail scars here, and I've had people see those, and it really means so much to them when they see that. It's like they feel it is for them.
Well, the guy that bought it.
Christ is giving them the bread. Like, take this. This is the bread of life. I'm giving it to you, and it is life. And so that has been the wonderful thing about it, that the response that people have from things like that.
Right.
And so I do have some in my mind that I haven't painted, some other in that series, and some series of, from when I do different Bible studies, or if I'm from different verses. So I did the one, and I had an idea of a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and vessels of silver, or silver baskets. And so I did gold and apples, and I put it in a silver basket. And so just little things like that to kind of remind me of,
Do you
or anyone.
do you wake up at night and have these?
Sometimes I do.
I do too. Not
Yeah.
painting.
Right. No, yes.
I do have
No, yes.
inspiration
absolutely.
of some sort, whether it's
Yes.
a talk or whatever.
I did a live events too. I've done some weddings, and I did a live event at Northfield when they opened the Sumner Center, and just painted that. And absolutely, I did that because that was kind of a new when I just started doing that, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. How am I going to do this? With a bunch of people and the balloon and all this stuff. And I just prayed, and I just put on music and just worshiped, and then it was just like this is how you're going to do this. Okay. And I did it. And it was awesome.
If it's anything like video editing, you have to start. Once I start and get into it, then things start flowing. But I can
editing
I
itself
can sit around
sometimes,
for days and worry
Right.
about starting
Right.
and not get anywhere. But once you
Yeah.
start, things start happening.
Well, let me tell you what not to say to someone who makes that transition from teaching public school to deciding she's going to be a painter. And she comes home from school one day and goes, "I'm done." I said, "I know, it's summer break." And she'd been teaching about 12 years, 8th grade middle school. And so she said, "No, I'm done. I'm not going back." And I was like, "Well, what are you going to do?" And this, I mean, she had not painted anything except that one vase at this point. And she said, "I'm going to become a painter. And you husbands need to listen real close. Don't ever, ever do what I did." I said, "Well, I'm going to be the next pope." And I am not the next pope. And she is a world-class painter now. How about that? I was like, where is this coming from? But man, she had a talent that was buried and hidden. And she heard God speak to her about it, and she went for it and has blessed a lot of people with her art. And I've even asked her recently, you know, "Honey, I need an illustration or two for my book." And she goes, "I am not an illustrator." And I will not let her off the hook because look, I have seen you doodle. I've seen you win for best drawing in Tennessee with a charcoal pencil. Yes, you can do this. I am not. She'll always throw that back at me. So I just hold her to it. No, I need this. And so when you see the book come out on Father's Day, she has 2 illustrations in there. And one of them is where the walls of Jericho fell in. It is the best depiction of that I've ever seen in my life. Wait till you see it. It's really, really good. I'm
not an illustrator, but that's okay.
Do you have any questions
Just
or
give me
comments
oil painting.
for the Seitz family? Here's one right here.
Hello, I have a question for both of you. You have both shifted gears well along in life to significantly different pursuits than what you were doing before. Would you talk about the role that your friends and loved ones played in your life, in God, like guiding you and prompting you into those new areas?
Mm-hmm. You want to go first?
Well, Jimmy was so supportive of me learning to paint, because I think it's more than just like, oh, I'll do this and I'll go get a little Etsy, or I'll go. I really wanted to learn a lot, and it's expensive to take classes, and I didn't go to art school, but I kind of made my own art school, and he was just so supportive at that. And if he wasn't, I wouldn't have been able to, because there's just no way I would have been able to. But he really, really helped in that, and so it is very, very important to have someone who's supporting you, especially if it's marriage and you're making money doing this, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need money because I want to go do this. And so I know it was a sacrifice for him, but he was willing to do that for me, and I think it was wonderful.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that.
I will say this, when it comes to the transition I made, there were a handful of men in particular that got behind me, because I was told that, first of all, if you do an outdoor show that has a Christian message, the outdoor companies won't sponsor it, and that was true at first. And if you do a hunting show that has the killing of animals in it, churches won't support it, and that was true at first. So it was basically Phil Robertson, Jeff Fisher, Michael W. Smith, Bill Lee, who's now the governor in Tennessee, and Mark Ezell of Purity Dairy, and the fellow that owned Old Timer Log Homes, Paul Gentry, who's now passed away. Those guys got behind it, funded it, and Amanda, at that point, had not been teaching. She went back to teaching public school so we could live on her salary for 3.5 years. I didn't take 1 penny of salary as we started Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. And so you've got to have that group of people who believe in what you're doing to help fund it and get it going. And then others will start coming along, and that happened. And I will also give great kudos to some of you, even in the room. We had people right here from the Madison Church that believed in us, who continued to volunteer and help us. And man, we're sending out, by year 2, we're sending out 150 Bibles a week. And sometimes we'd gather in, I think there's an attic room around here somewhere we would get in. And we were using these tables and we were, doing envelopes and all that. And it was just an assembly line. And then we wouldn't have any money to pay for them. And so somebody'd come along, okay, well, we can cover 100 Bibles. And so it's just been this amazing team effort of volunteers for the whole run, all the way through. And then we also were able to start layering some staff. I'm going to throw a kudo to Lindsay in the back in the houndstooth coat. Wave at everybody. Lindsay works with us on team and has worked on and off since she was 16. I won't say how old you are, but she is amazing and faithful and wonderful and encouraging, and that's the kind of people that we have around us, and it makes a huge difference. And family as well. The kids were all in on it, still are. So,
one last thing before we close. YouTube video, something new coming on the horizon. Let's play the promo and talk about that briefly because we are a little bit over time, but let's play that.
Hey, I'm Jimmy Seitz, and I want to invite you to our new YouTube channel where you'll find our Adventure Bible Studies. You'll find a 12-lesson series on the 23rd Psalm, a 10-lesson series on giants in the Bible as we expand our Adventure Bible Study classes. And it's all free. Go to youtube.com, search for Jimmy Seitz. Subscribe and click the bell to make sure you get notified each time we add a new lesson. Let's study the Bible together.
Let's study the Bible together.
Yeah, that's what we do. And Lindsay runs that whole thing. Thank you, Lindsay. Good job. So, yeah. We built a little podcast set in my office. All we got to do is she comes in at 6:30 and sets it all up in the morning. And I show up at 7 a.m. and sit down and off we go. And my other one that works full-time with me there in the office is April, and she'll do transcripts, and then I'll go over those, and Lindsay does the editing, and it's just a great team. There's just three of us, and we're loading that thing up. We've got a plan for about the next 5 years, right? Every single week, we know what we're putting on. Right now, we're doing The Shortest Man in the Bible. Does anyone know who that is? Nehemiah. It's a study of Nehemiah's leadership traits. So, and then after that, we're doing what? I can't remember, but she knows. You can ask her. And she has information about it if you want to see it.
And you have some items in the lobby?
Yeah, we brought some of Amanda's paintings if you'd like to see them, and they're available. And also, I've got a couple of books out there, and then we've just got some literature you can take home with you, a newsletter, and where you can find Spiritual Outdoor Adventures. It's airing in about 70% of the world now every week. In syndication. So we're running those 292 episodes all refurbished again, and it's pretty fun. So,
thank you for being with us.
Man,
thank you.
Thank you. It's been so fun. It's so good to see everybody out here. It's like old times. It's like a family reunion for me to be here. So I even see Earl Campbell still alive back there, man.
Barely.
You look the same.
Barely.
I can't believe you and Jerry Cheryl, both of you.
I've used this scripture before, but I believe it applies to you and Amanda as well. Romans 10:14 through 15. Mm-hmm. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. So God bless you in your work and spreading the news around the world. Thank you for being here with us.
Absolutely.
Take time to share your story of amazing grace with someone this week, and we'll see you next month on Stories of Amazing Grace. Thank you for coming by.